playing the drums. My memory don't stop at 1 and 2. They go but all the way back to trying to come out. And it was such a struggle. I mean, a long amount of days, something like 12 to 14 days. But I always knew that I'd be doing something. I wanted to do something to make people happy. And for some reason, my mother played the piano. We had a piano in our home. My aunt played the piano and sang also. My father wanted to play the saxophone, but he was a businessman. He learned mechanics of jukeboxes, slot machines, pinball machines, cigarette machines, anything, mechanisms that dealt with where you put money, coins into, and something came out. My father was good at, if they were broke, restructuring them and putting them back to work. He learned that in the Army as a mechanic. They sent him to South Dakota. He only went to the 6th grade, but obviously he knew he had these kind of skills. So when he came back to Fort Worth when I was 5 years old, he saw a need for something from the business he was working in. He was working for a Panther Distributing Company.
So you didn't see your father until he was 5 years old?
I didn't see my father until I was 5. My father left, had signed a paper. It's around here in the house. I've seen it. I've seen it over the years. It's a black sheet of paper from the United States government saying where if he got killed or anything while in the service, then I would receive the money. My mother would get the money from me. Because obviously I was conceived before he left, before he was shipped off, and he didn't have a chance to get married. And he signed this letter in South Dakota and it was sent here. The Panther Distribution was the monopoly company on jukeboxes, pinball machines, slot machines, and so forth in Fort Worth. They hired my father. He immediately went up to the top because he was very good at this. And he became the person who decided if it was unfixable or not. The jukebox had gotten to a place where you couldn't use it no more, or the slot machine had worn down to a place it couldn't be repaired. It was his job to get it to the dump, get it out of their system, throw it away. What he would do, though, was take it to a shed behind his house and fix them and put them in a black business and started taking half the money, and they had to take half the money. Well, these machines were jukeboxes. Wurlitzers and was one of the bigger ones. And we wind up having 26 juke joints that we had to service every week. And we had to put the latest records on them. So in order to buy records, you had to go to Dallas to the industrial park to get the records. So by the time I was 14, they sent me to the state driving school, state trooper driving school, so I could get my license because he had a business. And he opened, by having this jukebox business, we needed records. And so he saw, since we needed records, well, there was no black record store in this community of Fort Worth. So he opened up the first house of music, which was a place where you could come. And the biggest selling record stand in the black environment was the gospel music. First, 3/4 of the store was taken up with gospel music. The rest of it was taken up with jazz, rhythm and blues, and blues, straight cold, stone cold blues. Now, fortunately, the Masonic Temple was over here, and I got to see Jimmy Reed when, even before, say from 12 to, at a very early age, I saw Jimmy Reed perform. We were all outside. We couldn't go inside, but we could hear him. And the problem with that is some of the problems that we have today, where something has been mislabeled because of somebody else's stupid ideology or their frame of mind or frame of reference, unchallenged. So this music called the blues and rhythm and blues was called race music and sin music. The church was against it. What I heard in the church, the choir conductor of the church I grew up in was also the principal of my elementary school. So at lunchtime we heard Rachmaninoff, we heard Chopin, we heard Beethoven, we heard Wagner. We were exposed to classical music because in those days, a person your age wouldn't know, but there was even a television show. The fellow just died, called Move On Up. Black people were striving there. Now, what they were striving to be was something they were already past being in the first place. Because black people have always been rejuvenate, no matter where you place us on this planet. For instance, the first man to discover the North Pole wasn't Perry, it was his assistants. So a movie with Delroy Victor that explains that, but you can also read it in history. It's been there written a long time. Why? Because he was able to mingle with the Eskimos. And by mingling with the Eskimos, they would make him suits out of seal's skin. And he learned how to cook Eskimo food. So he was warm and healthy. It wasn't a difference between black and white. It was being accepted into each environment. And that's what we have been able to do as a people, to be able to commingle and become and manifest on our own level in any environment. Well, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
At the same time my father had his business, you had a lot of black businesses, a lot of black restaurants and bars all over Fort Worth in the black communities. And we didn't need to go out of the black communities to get anything. Everything we needed was in the black community. So you had the China Dog, you had the Paradise Club, you had the Black and White Club, you had Billy Bob's, which I didn't know at the time, where I got most of my training, was owned by my father. And it was a fellow there working there who used to work with the Ray Charles Band. His name was Charles Scott. He was my really first mentor, my first teacher. And when we were at the House of Music, my father's cousin opened up a shine stand right next to where the gospel records were. And it was like a two-seat shine stand. And by then I learned to pop the shine rag and be in rhythm. All these things went into me developing what I'm into playing drums. Also, next to this House of Music was a hotel bar, the Pink Flamingo. Downstairs there was live music on the weekends. Upstairs in the hotel was where the musicians who came through town would stay. I would go knock on the drummer's door. I'd find out where the drummer would stay and ask them for tips and ideas. What do you do? And then one of the drummers I met at the Paradise told me one night, he said, look, learn to play as softly as you can, because the drums is an instrument of excitement. So you learn to speak very softly, and you'll be okay. And I took that idea and developed it, especially when you try to work on ideas and things in rooms, hotel rooms and things. You have to be very discreet. And so it makes you where you have to train your muscles in your arms and legs to be a specific way, to lock into a certain way, like a runner, or like a swimmer, or like any other athlete, in order to manipulate and maneuver. And after a while the mind runs it by itself, develops to a place where you can be watching yourself. I remember I had experience in Houston, Texas. We had a place called the Purple Onion. And I had moved to Houston to go to TSU University. I attended school about a good week, maybe. Because by the first weekend, I went and sat in, and a fellow named Alan came and touched me on the shoulder and asked me would I like to work. They needed a drummer. I said, yeah. So I started work then on drums from 8 in the evening to 12 o'clock at the Guff Gate. People were dancing, formal, black and white. You know, white people was dancing with women would wear white dresses, the men would wear tux with the bow ties and stuff. It was a very formal dinner. And after they eat, they would, you know, that was the meat and bread. That paid for the rent. Then we get off at 12 o'clock, go eat, and 2 o'clock we go to the after-hour joint and play from them from 2 to 4 to 6 in the morning. That was our release valve from having to be we're going bang, chicka-dang, 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 ting-ting-dang, ting-ting-dang, dang-dang, ting-ding, ding-dang, ding-ding, 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 dang, dang.